So in today's video, I actually want to go over how does someone become a narcissist, and then also as well, how we can help the narcissist heal. Now, a lot of us in our healing journeys or our paths to kind of finding our true selves, many of us have kind of encountered or gone through narcissistic abuse. But it's also important to understand how a narcissist even comes about, like what their upbringing was to bring about these traits that potentially harmed us or hurt us, right? So I don't have any PhDs, I don't have some of the licensing that other people commenting on this issue have, but I do believe that I have a unique perspective. Why? Because I spent the first 18 years of my life around nothing but personality disorders, and the majority of that was narcissism. Now, even my adult years were kind of spent around that because like attract like, and that was my environment. Now, even myself, I had a lot of narcissistic attributes and qualities that was due to growing up in the environment and being around a lot of narcissism. Now, I tried really hard to not let the traits kind of be embedded into me, but ultimately when that's all you know, it's gonna pass down to you. And I had to work very hard to unlearn and rewire myself from these traits. Because you see, narcissism is not genetic, all right? No one is born narcissistic. Instead, it's learned behavior. It is often developed in childhood and is usually passed down from generation to generation. When we talk about narcissistic personality disorder, we are talking about a very good example of what generational trauma is. Narcissism is not binary, okay? It's not a 0 or 1. It's not like you are a narcissist or you aren't, okay? Narcissism exists on a spectrum. And having a certain level of narcissism is actually healthy. But there does come a point to where it starts to become toxic, unhealthy for yourself and even for people to even be around you. And there's even a certain threshold where once it is severe enough, it's very hard to heal from narcissistic personality disorder. Before we move on to talking about what creates a narcissist or how someone starts having a lot of narcissistic attributes, I believe it's really important to just quickly define what narcissism is. Alright, so narcissism is someone who has a very inflated sense of self-importance. They believe that they are superior to others, they are arrogant, they have a very self-serving quality about themselves, okay? Others are just other people in their external environment are just there to serve them, okay? They will often exploit and use other people for their own personal gain. They believe that other people have to bend over backwards to meet the narcissist's needs. And there is a severe lack of empathy within someone who is narcissistic, okay? They cannot see things from another person's perspective. They can only view situations and what's going on in their life from their vantage point. There's a lot of vanity within people who have narcissistic tendencies, okay? They are very materialistic. They are not about internal, intrinsic qualities. They fantasize profusely about unlimited success and power. They need excessive admiration and validation from others, and if they don't receive the amount of insane praise they feel that they are privy to, they often will feel insulted and attack the other person. See, narcissists have a lot of jealousy and envy, okay? They will only support you, alright, as long as you're not out excelling them or outshining them. The moment you do, they will begin to attack you. Alright? And if someone that they consider below them is ever critical of them or just kind of being confrontational with them, they will just assume that it's because the other person is jealous or envious of them and has nothing to do with the fact that they may be disrespectful or, you know, not very nice. So there's this misconception actually that narcissists are people who love themselves too much, and honestly that couldn't actually be further from the truth. You see, people with a lot of narcissistic attributes and traits are those who honestly lack a true, authentic self or a connection with their true self. They believe that their value and their self-worth is completely dependent on how much they can impress other people. Narcissists are essentially those with a deep, wounded inner child. And if you want to know more about the wounded inner child, please, I'll link the video up ahead on when I covered that subject. But they are essentially, their consciousness never evolved beyond childhood. People with narcissism are those who are forever children, okay? They are a child stuck in an adult body. And that is why they often have behaviors and traits, when you get down to it, that are very childish and immature. This finally leads us to the main point of this video, which is, how does someone become a narcissist? Now, to heal, we need to actually eventually be able to empathize with these people that hurt us. I know that's difficult, but narcissists often lived very tragic lives themselves. Narcissism is actually just a coping mechanism and a defense reaction to a subset of severe trauma. It is essentially a very elaborate, deep mask that is put on to protect oneself from a very broken inner child. There are 3 attributes of a childhood that, if met, can very often lead to severe narcissistic attributes and traits. These 3 things are that they felt unsafe during their childhood, right? That there was a suppression, a complete suppression and rejection of any uncomfortable or negative feelings, and that any love or affection was very much dependent on external success and achievement. Now let's go over how these 3 things in childhood will create a lot of narcissistic attributes. So feeling unsafe in childhood, well, that will often create a need for power and control in the individual as they reach adulthood, because they are trying to avoid ever having to feel the powerlessness and helplessness that they felt as children when they're in their most vulnerable state. You see, feeling unsafe in childhood can be as severe as child abuse, whether that's sexual, physical, emotional, or it could be as simple as a family that moved around a lot. You see, when there's not sources of stability, we feel unsafe. Okay? Very often, these children lacked a secure attachment with a caregiver. Their basic needs were not only not being met, they weren't even being responded to. As a child, we are dependent on other people, and when other people aren't meeting our needs, we feel our lives are at stake. Okay. Oftentimes, the child wasn't even allowed to have their own boundaries. There was also a lot of enmeshment between the caregiver. There wasn't any defined personal space for the child. There was never an area where they felt they could be safe within themselves. All right? And so when all these things line up, what happens is that the child's nervous system will essentially engage in a constant state of fight or flight. And so when someone's nervous system is in a severe mode of hypervigilance on a consistent basis, they are going to be trying to control their external environment. Everything is going to seem dangerous to them, and they will feel that they will have to exert power and control over other people and not express vulnerability and not seem like they can be taken advantage of. I appreciate that sound in the back. The next one is suppression of feelings. All right. So when we suppress our feelings, we detach from our authentic self. And so likely for this child, any expression of negative feelings or feelings that the caregiver found uncomfortable were deeply discouraged, even if not allowed at all. If they ever even did express these feelings, they were often humiliated and mocked. See, when we are not allowed to trust our own true thoughts, feelings, and emotions, we are being told that our true authentic self isn't allowed. It's not good enough. It's not allowed to be here. So what do we have to do? We have to completely disconnect from itself and create something fictional, false in its place. This false self that now exists, it's there to make sure that they never encounter these feelings of sadness or fear, anything that exhibits vulnerability, because once again, the true self that we all have thoughts, feelings, emotions, it wasn't good enough. And this is the main thing that keeps someone with narcissistic personality disorder locked in a state of consciousness that is equated to a child. Because when emotions and feelings aren't allowed to flow through, consciousness does not evolve. It stays stuck in time, and this is when the narcissist becomes a forever child. The last thing that someone will experience in childhood that, if met, will create a lot of narcissistic attributes, okay, is love and affection being conditioned purely on external success or achievements. This is what makes this mask that was now created through feeling unsafe and having to suppress feelings into the mask of that of a narcissist. As a child, we need to feel like we have value just for being born, that we have worth for just being here. We need to be loved unconditionally by our caregivers. And so the tragedy of someone who develops narcissism is that oftentimes they weren't ever able to feel like they were an autonomous individual. They are simply there to be an extension of the caregiver. You see, the caregiver treats the child as if they are there just to gratify the caregiver's needs, to meet the caregiver's needs of validation and praise. So when the caregiver or guardian is not getting enough validation and praise themselves, they will use the child to get those needs met. See, intrinsic internal qualities such as having compassion and love, they're not valued. They are shown to the child that they don't matter unless they can be showcased for others. You see, everything is being displayed that it has to be something that can be exhibited to other people, or there is no worth and value in any action. So now the child is running off this faulty reward system, and they are growing up into their adult years believing that every action they make has to be something that can be approved or shown to impress other people. They don't even understand now what their own internal needs are. They don't even understand now what their true self is, because their entire adolescence, the entire time that they're in this the entire time they're in this theta brainwave state as a young child, when they're taking in new core beliefs, they're being told they don't matter. They're being told that they matter as much as they can fulfill and look good upon one another. So then they believe that no one should ever feel value in searching out their own personal needs. So they're not going to respect the boundaries and needs of other people, because they don't even respect the boundaries and needs of themselves in a sense. You see, this is where the tragedy of someone with narcissistic traits is. They are running on this belief that if they just finally achieve enough, their needs of unconditional love that they never got throughout childhood will eventually be made. Because we all have this hardwired trait of wanting acceptance from our parents or our caregivers, no matter how hard we try. And so what a narcissist is they are forever indebted into this cycle of this carrot that they will never attain. The last part of this video I wanted to go over is how we can help someone in our life, whether it's a boss or a co-worker or a family member, even someone we're in a relationship, help heal their narcissistic attributes or tendencies. You see, as long as they don't become severe enough, they can be unlearned and they can be unhealed. They have to be ready that it is a painful and long process. When someone is healing from narcissistic attributes or traits, they have to be given the exact opposite of what they were shown in childhood. So the first thing is that they need to be given a safe environment. They need to be shown that they are safe and stable, and their body needs to be shown that it can disengage from this hypervigilance and their fight or flight mode, that no one is there to take advantage of them, that no one is there to create instability in their lives, and they are respected, and that nothing will attack their sense of self. They need to be shown that feeling negative emotions is not only allowed, but it is encouraged. They need to be shown that feelings of vulnerability are actually feats of strength. And they also need to be shown clear emotional boundaries, because what happens is when they finally feel like they're able to unleash all these repressed emotions, they're going to want to put it all on you. And because of their upbringing, they're going to want to feel that you're only there now to soak up all their negative emotions. It has to be shown to them that relationships are mutual and reciprocal, and as much as they give or take, it has to go in reverse as well. Lastly, they do need to be validated and reassured as if they were a child. They need to be known that all their achievements and all of this type is just a child's longing for acceptance. But they also need to be shown that your affection for them or your care for them, right, will be the same no matter what it is they achieve externally. That your love for them is unconditioned on what they do in their external environments. That you're proud for all they achieve. You're impressed by them. And it's great because hopefully these achievements can help other people in the future as well. That it's just not about them. But that it is also okay to just be themselves no matter what. And it's not about what they do in their external environments. When the person is shown this, right, what ends up happening is they finally feel like they are able to and allowed to enter into the process of grief. Because that is what this takes. Healing from narcissistic attributes is painful because you are grieving the fact that you were never seen as a person from the people who gave you life, from the people who you depended upon. You have to feel the anger and sorrow of what it was to be used your entire childhood and adolescence, and you need to feel the intense grief over a lost childhood. Without stepping into that pain, there can be no healing. See, no one can heal until they are shown compassion from others and until they learn to have compassion for themselves. If you want to help the person in your life heal from narcissistic traits, you have to show them this compassion, and then you eventually have to allow them to learn how to have compassion for themselves. Shame and guilt is not the way through to healing from narcissism. Alright, thank you for watching this video. Please click the subscribe button, and if you want any more information about narcissism or about even how to handle the narcissist in your life, right, because not all of them can heal, please comment below and I might make more videos on this topic. Thank you for watching, and I appreciate it.